Let's talk about the relationship between an editor and a reporter, because it is arguably the most important relationship in a newsroom. Now, I have had my equitable share of working under editors whenever I have so chosen to put my finger in the ink and paint the portrait of other people's lives. I'm less interested in discussing the differences between an editor and a reporter. I think we all intuitively understand what an editor does and what a reporter does, even if we do not work in a newsroom or in media, but more inclined to discuss why some people become editors and why others remain reporters. What does it really mean, the differences inside a newsroom? I think that's a more curious psychoanalysis of the different types of personalities that exist in journalism. To understand the psychological differences of an editor and a journalist, I think, is to break it up into a graph. Reporters are very good at getting it from 0 to 50, halfway up that line. But as that line goes closer and closer to the y-axis, it becomes asymptotic, never quite reaching 100%. And a good editor is able to get something that's at 50 as close as possible to 100. And they're radically different skills. Most editors do not have the personal predilection towards creating from scratch. They're not necessarily good at getting scoops or thinking about new story ideas, but I caveat that some editors are good designers of stories. But they're often not as imaginative as reporters are. This is only my personal observation. And so they're not very good at getting something from 0 to 50. But a good editor is amazing at recognizing when something's finished or when it's not. A good editor has great taste. Often editors have better taste than the journalists. The journalist is able to recognize the seed of an idea, but is not able to recognize when that apple is sour or sweet. And an editor, with its ability to make that apple sweet, to take that seed of the plant and refine it and refine it and refine it constantly like a Mendelian tree, each successive round of editing, crafting a piece that is so sweet to the consumer, the news consumer. That is the role of an editor. And it's a different psychological, personable trait than many reporters. Many reporters are in some ways lazy. They can stumble upon ideas or interesting observational insights. Slightly oxymoronic sentence there. They may have a good extensive network of individuals to call upon. They may be charismatic interviewers. But beyond that, beyond being able to get to the individual to talk, they may ramble for too long, be too laconic, not talk enough. The editor's job is to take, whether it is a long interview or a possible idea with a small leak, and to understand it and put it in its broader context or to refine it. And this personality is, I think, really what separates the reporter from the editor. That, and there is internally within newsrooms, editors are essentially managers where reporters are not. And that in each newsroom, you have divided into desks. And that editor is basically the manager of that desk. So some editors will accept stories and let their reporters have more of a free range, like a large farm. Some editors, like shepherds, will allow their reporters to free range and eat the grass anywhere along the acres of their beat, whether it be politics or tech or culture. While other editors, being perhaps a more disciplined type of shepherd, are very deliberate. This sheep, this reporter, we are comparing reporters to sheep for a moment. Also not a bad analogy sometimes. This sheep will graze on this 5x5 plot of land, and then right next to this will be this sheep, and if I have 20 sheep, each sheep will be exactly 5x5, and they will cover this specific line in their beat, and when they have finished grazing on that little piece of land, I will assign them a new piece of land, and I will rotate them out in a continual fashion. It's a different approach to shepherding, and a good editor is ultimately a good manager. Now, many editors can make more money than reporters, so with becoming an editor often includes a larger salary and more respect within the newsroom. Although editors kind of give up their byline and their external glory to the front-facing public, they get more respect and deference inside the newsroom. So sometimes people become editors because the taste of power feels good on their tongue. And other reporters are either not very good handling any sort of power, they're barely responsible for themselves, let alone other individuals. See, Hunter S. Thompson is a good example. But these individual psychological or personable differences, in my mind, make up the large extent for why some people are editors and why some people are reporters. And if you were to take a long self-examination about your personality, you may find yourself better suited to be an editor or better suited to be a reporter. And there's no right or wrong answer. But if you feel like you're a reporter for many years, there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel like you'd rather be an editor, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think ultimately the most important distinction between editors and reporters is their psychological differences. And a good reporter and a good editor that work together will understand those psychological differences and balance each other out. Now, one thing I have seen that I will forewarn any up-and-coming journalists about is that the cross-pollination between print reporters, there's no good name for people that write purely with word on text. Now, we don't really have physical newspapers anymore, but print reporter referring to people that write for a living as reporting versus video reporting, video journalists. And as this cross-pollination continues, the breakdown between journalists that only write articles and journalists that only make videos continues to become one. Many journalists now are required to be able to edit and quickly scrape together at least some semblance of a video. And many video journalists are required often to write up an article along with their video. For many reasons, most or chiefly among them being that it increases the search engine optimization of the content they are producing for that media company. Nonetheless, I've seen many editors dominate decisions on the video side or the print side where they know nothing about. You see, as I talked about earlier, editors often have very good taste, but their taste only extends so far. I've seen print editors decide thumbnails for video journalists that are obviously abysmal and are counterproductive to any sort of CTR. And vice versa, I have seen video editors attempt to craft headlines and descriptions for articles that are rubbish, that bury leads, that are boring, that are long and winded. And so I warn the up-and-coming journalists that be careful. While good editors often are great tastemakers, if you come up understanding video, be very wary of people that come from print reporting and listening to what they think is best. The same goes for people that come up through the print reporting. They suddenly have video editors prescribing how they should construct the photos and headlines in their posts and articles. Be very cautious of their advice. Anyway, these are just some thoughts. Hopefully you found this moderately insightful or a different window into understanding the editor and reporter relationship inside newsrooms. I don't think it's something that's quite as discussed in psychoanalytic terms. Anyway, these are just a few thoughts. If you found this interesting, like, subscribe, dislike, click a video here, but I never embed it, so let's not bother with that. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.